This video is sponsored by Sonata, the best royalty-free music for your videos. Although there was a time when many thought that shooting on motion picture film stock would quickly die out after the launch of high-quality digital cinema cameras like the Arri Alexa in 2010, film still persists. In fact, in recent years it's seen a bit of a resurgence. In this video I thought I'd do a bit of a deep dive into the topic, so sit tight while I go over why some productions still choose to shoot on film over using digital cameras, and outline the whole process of how film is shot from pre-production and production, all the way to its post-production workflow. Before going over how film is shot, I think it's important to understand why it's shot. On the surface, digital has many apparent advantages. It's often cheaper, it's possible to roll for much longer, there's less room for exposure or development errors, you can view the rushes immediately, the list goes on. When it comes to listing the pros for shooting on film, it usually comes down to two factors: the look and the way of working. My favorite cinematographer, Sayombu Muktiprom, puts it simply: it's a better practical experience and aesthetic choice. Nowadays, it is possible to recreate most of the color and texture of film with digital footage in the color grade, so that it's perhaps a 95% match or whatever number you want to use. However, I'm still yet to see the highlights and natural sharpness in a digital image effectively manipulated in a way that is 100% indistinguishable from film, particularly 16mm. And if you have the budget to shoot on film and that's the look that you're after, why shoot digitally then spend a load of effort in post trying to achieve a look and texture that is achieved out of the box with film? Having spent time on both film and of course digital sets, I can attest that there is a marked difference in the vibe on these sets, because you're shooting on an expensive and limited commodity. When the film starts rolling through the camera, everyone on set is far more focused. Also, the build-up to shooting on film is more focused. Shots are more carefully planned, movements and performances rehearsed, and only a limited amount of takes are shot. This contrasts with the so-called spray and pray method that sometimes happens when shooting digitally. So for filmmakers that value both the aesthetic and more disciplined on-set manner of working that film provides, shooting in 16mm or 35mm remains a viable choice. Now that you've done the maths on the viability of the costs of motion picture film and chosen it as your working medium, how is it practically shot? It all starts in pre-production. Before arriving on set, the director of photography will either conduct camera tests with various film stocks, or use their prior shooting experience to select a stock or a few stocks that are correct for the project. Today, this means choosing between Kodak's range, who are the only remaining manufacturer of motion picture film stock in the world. The cinematographer will base this decision on three factors: the ASA or sensitivity of the stock, the color balance, daylight or tungsten, and the look. They'll look at how the stock captures color, each is subtly different, and the amount of grain and texture that they have. Stocks with a lower ASA like 50 daylight will have very fine grain, while higher ASA stocks like 500 tungsten will have more noticeable texture. Daylight stocks rated around 5500 Kelvin have color that is balanced to look normal in daylight. Tungsten stocks around 3200 Kelvin have color that is balanced to look normal under artificial tungsten light. It is possible to shoot tungsten stocks in daylight and either add a warm 85 filter to correct the color temperature, or shoot without a filter and correct the color balance and the grade in post-production. Some cinematographers may choose multiple stocks, for example 250 daylight for exteriors and 500 tungsten for interiors and night scenes, while others may choose to photograph an entire project with a single stock. It's on them to estimate how many rolls of film stock will be needed, which the production team will then go about sourcing. Short-form projects like commercials will usually order all the film up front, while longer feature projects will often keep ordering new film as they go. Often you can return excess film stock back to the supplier as long as it hasn't been opened and loaded into a magazine. However, it's still best practice to acquire the amount of film as accurately as possible. You don't want to order too much stock and lose money because you can't return it, but you also never want to run out of stock or be unable to shoot. It's the job of the camera team to determine how much stock needs to be ordered and pass that information on to production, who will order it. Before we move on to how film is practically shot and how it is dealt with in post-production, let's take a second to acknowledge another important part of post-production which can form the backbone of a film: music. Selecting the right track is incredibly important as it can affect the entire tone of the film. One way to get your music selection right is with today's sponsor, Sonata. Sonata provides high-quality music that you can use with an unlimited license for all your film projects. I find their library of music to be of a very high standard, which cuts down on time spent browsing so you don't have to look through tons of cookie-cutter filler tracks. That's why I've started using their music library for the videos on this channel, including this one. So if you're looking for incredible, affordable music for your videos starting from $9.99 a month, then I'd recommend checking out Sonata. You can check out Sonata by getting a 30-day free trial using my link below. You can cancel it anytime, and any music you use and published whilst the trial is active, you can still use. So go give it a look today. With film stock in hand, or in the back of the camera truck, it's now time to load it and start shooting. This is either done by a dedicated camera loader, especially when dealing with multiple cameras, or done by the second assistant camera. Since film captures an image by being exposed to light for a fraction of a second, it's of the utmost importance that the raw stock is never exposed to any light. If a film can pops open for even a second outside, the film will no longer be usable. That's a good chunk of money down the drain. The second uses a light-free film-changing tent and loads the stock from the film can into the magazine completely in the dark. Once in the magazine and completely sealed, the assistant then labels the magazine using tape. Red tape for tungsten film or blue tape for daylight film. With a Sharpie, they'll write down information like the roll number, what stock it is, the code that identifies the stock, how many feet of film is usable, and any necessary developing instructions. The second hands the magazine to the focus puller, who laces it onto the camera where it is ready to shoot. Before rolling, DPs meter how much light there is with a light meter and set their exposure. Nowadays, they often carry their own digital stills camera and double check the exposure with it. For example, if shooting 500 ASA film with a 180-degree shutter, they set the digital camera ISO to 500, the shutter to 1/50th of a second, and manipulate their aperture until they find an exposure they are happy with. The aperture of the film camera is then set and any necessary ND filters added or subtracted to cut down or increase the amount of light that enters the camera. After each scene or shot is completed, the assistant director will announce, "Check the gate." The focus puller does this by taking off the lens and examining the film gate to ensure it is clean. Any dirt or hairs on the gate means the shot will be ruined. If the gate is clean, the first AC announces "Good gate," and the production moves on to the next shot. It's the job of the second AC to consistently check the film counter to know when the magazine will run out. Once all the film in a mag has been shot, it is removed and carefully unloaded in the tent by the second. They put it back in its can, seal it securely with tape, and place the tape label from the magazine onto the can. At the end of the day, they will make a camera report stating all the rolls that were shot with all the necessary information. From the 3 copies of the report, 1 copy goes with the raw footage to the film lab to be processed, 1 goes to the production team for their records, and 1 backup copy is kept by the second. Once the film arrives at a lab such as Cine Lab in the UK or Photochem in the US, the first thing that needs to happen is to develop it. The film is passed through a combination of chemicals. This sets the image on the film as a negative. Once developed, the film can now be handled in light without concern. In order to edit the footage, it needs to be converted to a digital format so that it can be worked with in the same way as files from a digital camera. To do this, the film is either scanned or goes through a telecine. For a telecine, as the film passes through a machine, it is captured and recorded as a video file in real time. usually in HD. The scan is slower, more expensive, and records much higher fidelity video files. The most common modern industry scanner is the Scanity HDR. Each roll of film is put onto the spools of the scanner and motors run the film past a gate. At the gate, each individual frame of film which was shot is scanned at either 2K or 4K resolution and saved as a digital DPX file. It is capable of scanning up to 15 individual frames per second. These DPX files are uncompressed and lossless, with very high dynamic range. This means they are similar to RAW files that are captured by some high-end cinema cameras like ARRI RAW or Redcode RAW and retain a huge amount of color information. Due to the high quality of the files, they are fairly large. About 24 minutes of footage can be stored on 1 terabyte. These files are then worked with in a digital post-production workflow similar to how digital RAW files would be worked with. Once edited, those lossless files will be graded by a colorist who will find the desired levels of saturation and contrast and correct any color balances that are off. Finally, the finished graded footage along with a final sound mix will be converted into a DCP, a digital cinema package, basically a hard drive, which is used to digitally project the final film in cinemas. Occasionally, a film out is done, where the final DPX files are converted back to a film print, which is projected in cinemas the old school way, with light. Thanks everyone for watching, and a special thanks to all the patrons who continue to support the channel and keep it going. Hopefully this workflow breakdown was useful or interesting. Otherwise, until next time, thanks for watching and goodbye.